Thank you very much, Giovanni. Good morning to everyone. I'm Corrado Cerruti from the University of Roma, Vergata. I will discuss with you the trends in the management consulting industry in Italy. The 2012 has been not a very nice year, and overall the turnover went down by 1.2% decrease, so a slightly decrease with respect to 2011. So that may seem a minor decrease, but if you look the broad picture, you see that we are quite below the 2008 levels. So really the 2007 and 2008 have been very good years for the management consulting industry in this country, and since that the market has been declining. In 2011 there was a recovery in the market, and it was expected to continue also in 2012, but this didn't happen. As you see in here, the decrease we have is mainly related to the micro and the small companies. These companies are suffering a lot the crisis. The large companies, on average, are facing much better this period of crisis. They have heavily restructured, especially in 2010, and they have moved back to growth. There is apparently a strange dynamics as to micro companies. A lot of these companies are not managing to be profitable, but and therefore several of them are closing down every year. But the management consulting industry, at least in this country, is an industry with very low entry barriers, and therefore any year there are several hundreds, if not thousands, of new management consulting companies set up by managers who have left the industry, by consultants that left a large company for setting up their own. So the number of the micro companies keeps on remaining very high, as Giovanni was presenting you before, but with a lot of turnover. And this part of the industry is suffering a lot, is draining down the overall management consulting industry. As to the employment in 2012 with respect to the previous year increased. So the turnover went down, but the employment went up. And this is mainly due, as we will see, due to an average decrease in price. As the management consulting industry is really related to man hours, a decrease in price needs to be balanced in order to keep the turnover, by an increase in employment. Therefore, we have seen an increase of 2%. The largest part of the employment, the 83%, is made up of professionals, while staff represents 17%. The large companies have, on average, a percentage of staff on the overall employment much lower than 70%, though they are roughly between 9 and 11. As you have seen before, one-fourth of the employment is in large companies, even if they represent almost half of the turnover. And we will see the revenues for professionals that are very different between small and large companies. We have made a picture about specialization, areas of specialization, what is often called service lines. and the trends in 2012. So here you can see the first, almost 1/4 of the market is what we call functional consulting. So consulting related to IT, operation, supply chain. This part has remained quite stable. We have seen an increase in the strategy consulting and a decrease in consulting related to organization and well, the related training services. This is also driven by the fact that the large companies are much more focused on strategy, and they are growing much more than the small and micro companies, while small and micro companies are very strong in training and in organizational consulting. So therefore, the overall mix, so more strategy and less organization and training, is also related to the different trends of these two firm categories. The sectors served. Italy, compared to many other European countries, surely very much compared to UK, is much more related to the manufacturing sector. And this is also reflected by the target sectors that the management consulting are addressing. So if we see in Italy, more than 1/3 of the consulting is targeting to manufacturing, to the manufacturing sectors. Roughly half of it is targeted towards the service sector, and just 12% towards the public administration. This is the first graph you see on your left. If we look at the picture in Europe, of course, for Europe we always mean the countries we have selected for our benchmark. We see that in Europe the consulting services addressed to the manufacturing sector are on average much less, around 20–22%. The service sector and the public administration sector are much more developed. So the consulting in Italy is very much focused, comparatively more focused on manufacturing. Also, this element is related to the structure of the overall economy of the country. A lot of SMEs in the manufacturing sectors, a lot of small and micro consulting companies focusing on consulting these small and medium companies. You see on your right that the share of the management consulting services in Italy, in the industry, in the manufacturing sector, is much higher than the one in services, and even more in the public administration. So, as Giovanni was saying, the industrial structure of the country is one of the reasons why the management consulting industry is much less developed in Italy than in Europe. We have seen that the Italian market, the domestic market, is going down. As management consultants are telling their customer, when your domestic market is in crisis, try and find new markets. So the Italian management consulting companies have adopted on their own this, and they have worked hard on offering more services abroad. And the level of internationalization has increased during this year, has moved from slightly more than 10% up to 11%. In here you can see that quite obvious that large companies are driving internationalization. Small and micro companies are doing much less. Nevertheless, also micro companies are managing to sell their services abroad, mainly related to one of their customers going abroad, and therefore they are serving that customer also abroad. The capability to go international for a management consult, for an Italian management consulting company, is a key factor of success. In here you can see that the company that have worked on the international market, they managed to get international assignment and grow internationally together with their customer, has increased their turnover of 5% in spite of an overall decrease in the market. While those who haven't done it, are suffering much more. A decrease in the market by, well, almost 5.4% minus. So in here you can see the differences between those consulting companies that are domestic oriented versus those that are export oriented. You see very striking difference between these two trends. The productivity, and we have measured productivity in terms of turnover per professional, is around 110, in particular 111,000 euro per year. There is a very huge gap between the productivity by large companies, that is 186, and those of small and micro companies, less than half of it. And this is also related to the fact that a lot of these companies are really providing a very basic consulting to their customer. The pricing. The trends in the productivity, in the turnover per professional in 2012 went down. Went down basically because the average fees went down by 4%. For some companies a bit more, even 15–20%, for other companies a bit less. And in general, as you may, well, we do have a lot of colleagues from other countries. As far as we have seen from the FEACO reports, our fees are in general much lower. A little remark. You may see that while in every company size the fees decreased, the average fees increased. So in all the different segments there has been roughly a 4% decrease. However, the average fees in Italy has increased. Why? We didn't make a mistake because the mix changed. Because now there is more consulting for large companies. So even if every company in its own, let's say, segment is going down, so the average price is going down in each one, the average price of the market has gone up because there is more high-value consulting for large companies. I underline that because I was also puzzled when I saw the evidences. I said, this is decreasing, this is decreasing, this is decreasing, this is decreasing, and the average mark is increasing. That's the reason why. This low level of prices is for sure one of the reasons of productivity, which is a turnover per professional, which is lower than Germany, France, and UK. Let me make a small focus on an area which is very close to the classic management consulting, which is recruitment, selection, and outplacement. They are also part of the association. So Assoconsult is having insight not only the classic management consulting companies, but also there is a significant part of this company very focalized on recruitment, selection, and more outplacement. It's a niche. It's a niche market. It's quite fragmented. It's less than 20 million euros. So we are talking, before we were talking about 3 billion, now we are talking about 200 million. In here, the strongest player are from 3 to 9 employees. So quite small, but not very micro. And the large companies are significant, but not as significant as in management consulting. If the situation in the management consulting industry, in the classic management consulting industry, is difficult, the situation is even more difficult as to this niche. There has been a steady decline along the years, for 2 reasons. One, if we think at the recruitment, Italian companies are recruiting less and less, at least in Italy. Plus, these companies are suffering a lot of competition from the new internet players. More and more big companies, when they want to recruit, will not call a RSO consultant, but they will go directly and look for LinkedIn, Monster, or whatever. So there has been a significant decrease in the number of the firm compared to 2012, so 10%, particularly to micro firms, and the average turnover has gone down by 7%. This is probably a conservative estimate. It could be even much more than this 7%. And there has been a decrease in employment of 7% roughly, exactly 6.7% in our calculation. What are the challenges they are facing? There is a shrinking market in volumes, so there is less work to do. Let me open a parenthesis. While the consulting industry is going down, the management consulting is going down in value, it is going up in terms of assignments. So there are more hours to be made. On the other side, in the recruitment, selection, and outplacement market, there is really a shrinking volume of activities. A decrease in prices, and there is an increase in success fees contracts. This is suffered a bit by these companies because in many cases success fees is putting on them a lot of pressure. So a lot of these companies are leaving their core market and are moving into training, into consulting for restructuring for organizations. So if the management consulting overall is not performing well, except the large companies, this niche is having even more problems. As a final remark, let's leave out, or let's keep in our mind all the figures, and let's look at the qualitative analysis. You have seen that since 2008, the management consulting industry in Italy is going down. The key questions we were asking our a few key players in the industry, in particular 14, we have done 14 interviews, was related to how your company faced this period of crisis. And while we were discussing with all these partners, it emerged that there are 2 different ways of looking at a crisis. Some companies are looking at the crisis as a temporary phenomenon. Okay, there is this declining price, the Italian economy is going down, well, we can see a recovery from export and so on. So the idea that they are facing a temporary crisis. Other consulting companies are underlining that probably, apart from this, well, say, contingent element, there is something more radical. It's not really a crisis. It's a market change. There is a structural change in the market. And a few things they are underlining is a lot of traditional services, management consulting services, are not any longer required by the companies. A lot of the managers are former consultants, and they don't need consulting services, at least that kind of consulting services any longer. Well, we do have a lot of, from McKinsey to Accenture to all of these, especially major consulting companies, as CEO, well, logistic manager, HR manager in all these companies. And these companies have the manufacturing and the service companies as interiorized, have got in-house the competencies that a few years ago they were buying from management consultants. So they don't need that any longer. And on the other side, not always management consulting companies are ready to offer the new services, the new knowledge, the new competencies that are required by the firm right now related to globalization. So all the value chain has been reshaped. The impact of the digital revolution. So there are these two visions: temporary crisis or structural change. Based on the way you look at the market situation, you will respond differently. Therefore, we have seen a lot of management consulting firms, those who were responding to a temporary crisis, are basically increasing the recruitment of young professionals. I see the fees going down. Therefore, how can I cope with it in order to keep my margins? I put more young staff inside, therefore I decrease my cost. And basically, they are cutting down a lot of investments in new projects and basically are just doing basic training for the new employees. On the other side, companies responding to a structural change are behaving differently. They are increasing the percentage of senior professionals because they want to put at the customer senior person able to manage more different, more complex issues. And they are increasing communication and investments in the new service development. In any case, whether you are approaching the market as a temporary crisis or whether you are considering it a structural change, all of these companies are strongly underlining that they need to make variables the cost of the professionals. Everyone is saying we need to take out fixed cost. So they want to reward and eventually reward even more the very best professionals, but they want to have all these rigidities. You should know that in Italy, I don't know exactly the situation in many other countries, surely not in UK. In Italy, we do have a contractual structure that is quite rigid. This is killing many industries, but especially is damaging management consulting, where you want to reward very much an exceptional performance, and you don't want to keep or you don't want to have to pay a lot a non-performing professional. And of course, also almost all these companies have strongly reduced staff, general administration, and more they are very keen also in reducing cost billed to the customer, because the customer, I mean, is looking at also at these costs when they are making their evaluations. Um, let's look at the positive response towards this crisis. We have seen tactic responses and more strategic responses. On the short term, companies need to face the reduction in fees. That's a fact. You have to keep your margin. And how can you do it? As I said before, you can use more junior and less expensive consultant, but also you can reverse. So you can try not to be affected by the reduction in fees because you are offering new services, or you are repackaging your services together with different one, with IT services, with new media services, and so on. So one is, well, let's say, really absorbing the reduction in fees. The other one is trying to avoiding it. In any case, what we have seen that many companies are trying to move from selling man-hours to providing value. So they are trying to underline the value of their services more than the number of hours required. This also is related to an increase in the success fees. So success fees are more and more used in the industry, but not necessarily. So I can also compensate a fixed reward for a job. But also, a very interesting commercial strategy is to be more and more closer and closer to your customer. Investing in proposals. Try and be very close to your customer and understanding the customer's need, and being you as a consultant the proposer of a potential intervention that your customer hasn't seen. So you invest in studying, in seeing their needs, and then you reply with a hopefully innovative and attractive response. The overall trend is for shorter and shorter projects. So companies, at least in Italy, are very rarely committing for a 1-year assignment. They are on 6 months, 3 months assignments. But this is creating problems for management consultants, of course, because your revenues, your capability to plan has decreased. In any case, what good consulting companies are doing, even if the individual assignments are becoming shorter, they are managing to keep long relationships. So it's not that they are not doing a 2-year job, but they are doing it on slots of 3 months or 6 months. At the end of each slot, there is a strong check with the customer for a go or no go. But only facing the reduction in fees is not enough. Management consultants should look for new paths for growth. And we have seen 2 major paths for growth. One is, as I already said, becoming international. This is a very strong driver for growth. At the same time, several companies have underlined that the possibility for our management consulting companies to internationalize is mainly following Italian companies abroad. In fact, most of our internationalization is driven by Italian customers going abroad. Just very few companies have managed to set offices and practices that are autonomously developing consulting offer towards international customers, so non-Italian, serving a non-Italian customer outside Italy. This may change in a little while, and this is changing especially with respect to the Balkans. The Balkans are, and some part of Eastern Europe, are an area where Italy has done a lot of business with, so there are a lot of relationships. So internationalization is a strong driver for growth. The new services, as I've also already mentioned, are the second big driver for growth. So you can cross-selling, upselling to your existing customer. You may want to look for a new customer, setting up a very focused services. For instance, we have a lot of small, medium companies that are, on one side, they are not willing to invest or pay a lot for management consulting. Why we are not designing new offer for them, which is not based on fees, but is something, well, look, as a consultant, I'll support you in your growth path. At the end of these 3 years, we'll see where you have arrived, and then we'll share the returns. So there are innovative proposals for small, medium companies. There are innovative proposals for digital revolution, for the new media. There are new services that are developed at the border of the traditional management consulting. Something that is really between management advice, management consulting advice, and outsourcing. So really in the middle, sort of a temporary outsourcing. How companies are supporting this new path for growth? In many cases, by merger and acquisition, if you are large companies. There is a general tendency towards concentration, and the large companies are buying smaller companies or are trying to recruit senior professional or group of professionals. But also there are a lot of alliances and network being established. Especially this is touching the small medium companies, the small medium consulting firms. Well, they need that in order to get a critical mass. So, summarizing everything what we have seen, what is the role, I would say, the nature of management consulting in Italy? These reports have seen a general, in general, a difficult situation. This year, we haven't got into the details we used to go, but I can tell you that within an overall picture of decline, there is a lot of variability in performance level. So even if the overall market is going down, there are companies, even large companies, that are growing by 5%, 10%, 15%. And there is a widening gap between the winner and the loser. Winners and losers. So not everyone is the same, and the market is getting more and more different. What we have seen that there will be a strong selection in the market. And this selection will be based on the capability to have built a critical mass or to have acquired a strong focus. So you are either large in what you do or very specialized so that the customer will immediately look at you for their needs. And another element is the capability to serve, so being very close to the customer, providing a lot of man hours, a lot of young professionals, or being able to innovate and launch new services. So it seems there is a sort of double path for the future. So management consultants as management innovators, so going back to what the industry was in the 60s and 70s, so contributing a lot to management innovation, or being very strong in as service provider, management service provider, so supporting the companies more at the operational level, well, as I say, more on the border with outsourcer. So So this is the picture we have done. I'd like to thank all the companies that contributed to the survey, that are roughly 150. There is a steering committee in Assoconsult guiding us in our analysis. The 14 senior managers and partners who supported our qualitative research, and our 20 students, part of them are here, who supported us in the data collection. Thank you very much.
Okay, I would like to ask if there is any question, remarks, comments on the presentation. Facciamo prima Gianni.
One question was, maybe I couldn't see it, but how many countries did you ask?
Sorry, you have a microphone in front of you, so the translator can also.
So, yes, one question. How many countries did you ask for your report? And which countries? Because I couldn't see Austria, for example.
We haven't, for the EU comparison, we haven't done a very wide comparison. We have used fair code data. That's it. And within that, we have just taken the large countries, not to make any, just for us a simplification.
Like Pareto.
That's it. Well, we have used the Pareto approach. That's perfect.
In Switzerland, we asked by the survey this year about sustainability. Is this a theme in Italy for consultancies?
Yes, thank you very much. In fact, when I was thinking about new services, supporting the green economy is really, you're very right. And now I've cut down, but on the overall report, there will be a part on green economy. And it's growing a lot. And a lot of companies need that, from certifying green products to revising their process, yes. Thank you very much for...
But do you ask all the clients about this theme, or do you make your questions only for the consultancies?
Our survey, it's only target to the consultants. We ask the consultants, well, the kind of services they are offering, and that's it. We don't do a survey on, well, towards the customer. Yeah.
In Assoconsult, we have other initiatives for SME, for public administration, and on, in which we are looking with questionnaires and interviews to the customers. But this survey, the annual survey, is only by a side of the offer, not by the demand.